Goalies, goalie parents, and goalie coaches, welcome to the Goalie Podcast. I'm Brian DeCord. I'm joined with my right-hand man, John Corrado.
Hello, everybody.
And we have a special guest today. We have Jeremy Flibotte, who is the goalie coach at UMass Boston here in Boston, Massachusetts. We're excited to have Jeremy on, his first time with John and myself on the podcast. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Go Beacons.
Yes. And the Beacons had a pretty good year this year.
Yeah, we were pretty good. Unfortunately, missed playoffs by 1 point. But overall, though, definitely a big step from where we were the previous year. We had Tyler Bost as our graduate senior goalie. Really, helped our back line and securing some games that we needed. But yeah, no, it was good. I wish that we could have made a little bit of a run. No one's going to beat Hobart at the end of the day. They're just too good of a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I would say that it was a really successful year, and this upcoming year should be even better.
So this was your third year with UMass?
This is my fourth, I believe.
Fourth year. Okay, so 4 years with UMass, and you're also the director at our Woburn location.
Correct, yes.
Now, you mentioned Tyler Bost, who's an awesome goalie. Can you tell me what that's like to have a one-year guy, experienced guy, walk into the program? Like, what was that for the dynamics of the goalie department for you when you've got an older, experienced guy? And a lot of D1s are seeing this with portals, right? Like, they've got a goalie department, then all of a sudden the guy shows up and he's 25 years old and he's going to play all the games. So what was that experience like for you, and how did you deal with it?
So definitely a unique experience, because the years before that I had Sam Bass, so it was a continuous goalie, and I've known him my whole life. So, having
You were goalie partners at one point, weren't you?
yes, Auburn High. Yeah, he was a freshman when I was a senior, so very small world. And we.
All right, hold on. Let's be
Yeah.
clear on this. You were a senior. He was a freshman. Who played?
I did.
Okay, all right. Just
Nice,
checking.
love it.
Yeah.
Just
He was
wanna
good.
make sure.
He was good at that age too. Like, you could definitely tell that he was gifted to his craft and wanted to, change his game
Wanted to
every
get
year.
better.
Oh yeah, it was wild to see.
All right, so let's go back to Sam. All
Yep.
right, we're going to put Sam on the back burner here. Let's get Tyler and that dynamic of bringing in an older,
Yeah.
experienced goalie.
So a little different dynamic, when you bring in a graduate transfer, they've already kind of solidified themselves and how they play, and they're going to be the number one guy to play. I think the biggest thing for me to try to help coach Bost wasn't to change his game drastically, but was to take little pieces that I saw scouting him when he played at Nichols and kind of how transform that. So for me, with him, it was he loves to go down on his butterfly a little bit early on certain plays, where for me, I want you to be on your feet a little bit more. So an instance on a carry where the player goes down the wall and he goes behind the goal line, you can be up in your feet, even maybe in a little bit of an overlap, where it allows you to play just a little bit more freely, where he would already be down in his RVH while the guy's in the corner. And it was trying to with him, show him, hey, you're huge. Yes, of course, use your size to your advantage, but you're even bigger when you're on your feet. And trying to show him, hey, certain plays, this is where you need to be on your feet. Other plays, it's kind of more of a situation. How do you play it? Because I got a smaller goalie who's 5'9", who, if he goes down on the butterfly, it's all over. So for him, it's you have to stay up. You have to stay up, get there on your feet, then drop. Where with Boss, it was just trying to fine tweak a little bit of things. And I think the biggest thing was him was just, trusting his feet more. Like the big thing where he was getting beat a lot was lateral passes through the midline. He would slide instead of getting up. And it was trying to show him, hey, if a lefty's, on his off wing, or if he's not in a shooting position when he catches the pass, that should be your light bulb to get there on your feet. But if the guy looks like he's going to one-time it, or he can catch and release, okay, maybe we don't slide. We kind of use a T release or a lateral release, where it's in between both how I want him to play, but also allow him to be comfortable in the movement. Because if he's not comfortable making the movement, he's not going to do it in a game. And we could practice it till he's blue in the face. But if he's not comfortable doing it, just instinctively, he's not going to do it.
Hey, speaking of sliding, can I have you slide just a little bit? Because you keep on drifting out of the picture for me. And I keep on thinking you're going to slide right out of the net.
Oh, and you know what's funny? It's like I'm in the corner of my computer, so I don't know what's going on right now with my thing. But hey, it works right now. So
all right, right now you're perfectly centered.
Perfect.
It's good. We're not worried about you going out of the crease.
yeah,
That's
won't slide.
fantastic.
Put the brakes
Hey,
on.
if I can just jump in for one
Yeah.
second, it's tremendous hearing Jeremy talk like this, just seeing his progression as a goalie coach, to be able to sit and, and have him analyze players and situations and the way he's progressed as a goalie coach to have conversations, like deep goalie conversations. I think it's tremendous. He's done it in a short period of time too.
So let me ask you this, John. Were you training Jeremy back in the day?
I had
you train
Jeremy,
Jeremy?
and I remember he had this really cool mask, and he was a lefty. And I will say that he was hyper competitive, but I'll also say he had learned. He wanted to learn. He was curious about the position, and he was a good kid too. I remember when I came to your office and you were saying, you're interviewing him, and you said, do you remember him? And the first thing I thought was, yeah, I do. And he was a great kid back then, and just to see his evolution throughout this whole process, and for as weird as it sounds, becoming one of us. I mean, we're goalie geeks. I say it every podcast, every time I say it, and he's now one of us, and it's great to see his evolution from a player to a young coach to where he is right now.
Yeah, but I don't know does anybody really want to be one of us, John?
That's a good point. That's a good point. We are definitely a rare breed for certain.
All right, well, let's stick with Tyler a little bit too before we move on to that. And with Tyler, so he's at Nichols,
Mhm.
and then he ends up there. Are we seeing more movement at the Division III level from team to team, or has that stayed as it has traditionally been?
I think it's traditionally it's still the same. I don't think it's as crazy as
There's
Division.
not a lot of guys jumping around.
Yeah, because like in Division 3, like if you're not playing, you're never gonna play. And even if you transfer, like you're starting over from scratch. And like with us, we brought in a guy who had experience. Without him, our second guy had maybe 5 games. And every game he's played, he's lost. So it's like,
so just to give our listeners an idea, did you go get Tyler Boss? Did Tyler, reach out to UMass and said, "Hey, I want to go to UMass"? Like, how does that work at the Division III level?
more of the transfers. It's the guys reaching out. I mean, we do some scouting in here and there, but I actually believe the Boss situation was very last minute. Because we have, I forget what major he is, but he wanted to do his graduate program at UMass. He loved the program, the schooling wise, and obviously it was a no-brainer for him because of the hockey situation, and he would have just rolled right in, which is what he did.
I think he's in the physical sciences, right?
Yes, that's what it is.
I know he's going to get a CSCS. Yeah. So yeah, he's a smart kid. That kid's
very smart.
Kid.
Yeah, and he's a big boy too. He puts up a lot of weight in the gym. It's wild.
So what was it like going from Sam Best, who's a smaller goalie, to a big goalie for you? Was it easy? Were you like, oh, this is so much easier or better? Or what were you, how did it impact you as a goalie coach to go from a starter who was a small guy to a big man like Tyler?
Definitely a little bit of a change, obviously. Sammy's small, and with Bestie, it was, I think he found a way to make a save, and that was like intuitively in his DNA, where, Boss maybe needed a little bit more push of, hey, like you're going to have to figure it out position wise. Yes, you're great, but there's going to be times where you're off position, you get hit, you turn around. How are you going to adapt and make that uncomfortable save? There wasn't any, hesitation or negativity towards what I was trying to show Boss. There was always, okay, yeah, I'll try it. And then he would come back and say, I don't like it, but let's try to tweak it a little bit and see if we can kind of meet in the middle type of scenario. And he was older too. So at Nichols, I don't think they had a goalie coach. So it was just him trying to figure it out. So when he came to UMass and he had me, he could talk to me. Hey, I didn't like this save, or in the middle of practice, hey, something's off. What's going on? And I could watch it from an angle or however, whatever the drill was. And I could say, this is what you're doing wrong. And I would have my iPad so I could record him do it in the middle of practice and show him.
So Jeremy, along with that idea, how long did it take to establish the goalie coach goalie relationship with him?
That's a good question, John.
Yeah, because that's
it's
so essential to have it done, to get it done. And how did you go about it and how long did it take?
So ironically, he actually ended up working with me at Stop It on Fridays before the season started. So I was able to kind of just, meet him and kind of show him how I like to coach and stuff like that. And he was around the rink in the summertime training with Dak. So I met him previously to coming in, which, always helps because you don't want to just go on a blind date and have no idea what you're doing. You know what I mean? So,
no comment.
So for me, it helped, to break the ice in essence and kind of, work as, a goalie coach and goalie. It really was cool.
Awesome. Well, we mentioned Sam Best. Okay. Smaller goalie.
Yep.
And John, you worked extensively with Sam as did I. It was really interesting to see his path and his ability to go from Woburn High School to prep school. He went to Governors, and then into junior, and then into Division III college.
Don't forget, he had a stopover at AIC. He was on that team.
That's right.
Yeah. Was it Mankato they beat? I think they beat the #1 seed in the tournament. So he was a second goalie on that team.
That's right. So it was fascinating to watch him go from a young kid at Stop It goaltending to, where is last I checked, he was in the Southern Pro League, but I lost.
Yeah, I believe that's where he was last, yeah.
Okay. So you saw something in him as a freshman at high school?
Yeah. I mean, he was just his angle work, just knowing where he needed to be in the net correlated to the puck. It was just like, you could tell that he was different. Like I was more athletic and kind of flexible. And to me, I was more of the Marc-Andre Fleury, where he was more of the Philip Gustafson, kind of a little bit more angled and more.
Sure.
So Jeremy, if I could jump in on that.
Yes.
Having coached Sam from a young age, he bought early on into the skating drills we did.
Oh, yeah.
And because of that, he was very precise with his movements. He was very quick, crisp. I can't say to a goalie, enough like buy into the skating drills. It's going to make you better. And as you progress up the ladder, like I said, Sam got a look at a D1 school. Plus, he had a good career playing D3 because he was a good skater. That's the basic.
And how tall is Sam? Like how tall is Sam? Really, not in the program book, but really.
He's got, on a good day, I'll give him 5'10". Yeah. Like on a good day.
Yeah. So at that size, makes it really difficult to get to the D1 level. He actually got D1 for a little bit, and then ended up, probably right in his wheelhouse where he fit, which is a Division III level. Like, so now that you're 4 years into UMass Boston, and you've seen, a young Sam Best go all the way through and get to that point, and now you've worked with an older, experienced goaltender. How does that impact your coaching? So how does working at UMass Boston impact how you approach coaching in Woburn at the development center?
So for me, I kind of break it up more like physical training and mental. So for me, I would say when the goalie is more of like 16 and older, the training, yes, physical side is very important, but now they're at the age where they have to mentally be able to read a play. They have to be mentally able to, take their energy levels and hold it so that they can kind of control their emotions and not let, hey, the guy in the corner that got slashed in the face and you're now freaking out because I bet on the next shot, you're going to let it in. And perfect example was Aiden Emmerich. We can talk about that a little bit later. I was actually talking with John about it. But yeah, for the younger goalies, for me, when they come to stop it, it's more of the, the actual physical training, how to make a good glove save, how to make a blocker save, because that's more important at their age because they have their attention span is limited, unfortunately. So to try to be like, hey, mentally, like, you guys have to buy into this, they're going to look at you and be like, what are you talking about? But the older goalies where they've trained so much physically, it's almost muscle memorization at that point. And you have to connect the mental side to be able to make the right stick save. Because if you can't read the play, you're not going to make the correct save, which entails on a bad rebound and the puck's in your net.
So it's funny you mentioned short attention span, and I thought you were looking directly at John when you said that.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I phased out for a bit. I'm like, oh, he's calling my name. He's calling my name.
Too funny. Hey, so you mentioned Aiden Emmerich. Can you tell me a little bit about his story and then kind of where that discussion was going with John?
Yeah, of course. So Aiden was training with John when I first started. So I met Aiden and his younger brother, Graham. Great kids, great family. Same thing. Aiden was like a bestie, could figure it out. He was a great skater, ability to, just make a save. And then once I started, kind of taking him on my own as, one of my clients and really divulge into his game, for me, it was more of he's a very emotional goalie. He likes to play with emotion. And if the game doesn't have emotion, it's trying to find ways to build emotion in yourself, but then also store it and allow it to only come out at the right times. So perfect example. I help with Winchester High School. I do their men's team, and Aiden was my goalie 2 years ago, the year that we went to the finals and lost to St. John's Prep. It was him and the other goalie playing every other game for the first half of the season. And this is when Aiden started really training with me, and we were just starting to, really divulge into the mental side of the game and, hey, maybe you need to, meditate in the middle of periods or whatever it may be. Eventually it clicked and he found ways to play with emotion, but within the lines and allow his emotion to help him make better saves, allow him to be a better skater because he already had enough tools in the toolbox, but the mental side was just, I don't want to say missing. It just wasn't connecting fully. You would get spurts of it. And then there would be spurts where it was like, you're like, well, what's going on here?
Hey, John.
Yeah.
So as Jeremy was speaking, I was just the two words, emotional control, popped up in my mind. And we talk a lot about mindset and being able to move past goals and so on and so forth. But what he's talking about is emotional control. Nothing, John? Now you're just shaking your head on that?
I was just thinking because I heard a good podcast the other day, and they were talking about the great three tennis players of our generation, Nadal, Federer, and I can never pronounce his name, Djokovic. And they were saying that, they won all the tournaments. And why they win all the tournaments? And they said because they each had their style, their own mental game that worked for them. And they were saying that other players didn't get into that category because if you got through one, you had to get through the other, and then the third to win a tournament, and it was impossible to beat all three of them. They said, Nadal liked the raw power game. They said, Djokovic was just like a robot. You couldn't shake him. They said Federer had every shot in the book, and you didn't, you just couldn't beat him with that way. And they said it was impossible to win a tournament with those three guys involved because they each had such a strong mental game, and their focus and the commitment to the game that they had developed. No one else, you couldn't get through all three of those people to win a tournament. So it was a really good podcast to listen about how those guys just committed to what they did best.
So when I look at when I'm thinking, Jeremy, as you're speaking about emotional control, it's almost like in a different category for me. It's almost like it's in its own category. You know, I'll make you laugh, and John knows this, Jeremy, but you probably don't know this. I'm a closet American Idol fan. Okay.
Now, not to interrupt for 1 second, Dak, but yeah. I laughed too. But when he told me his reason why, it actually makes perfect sense.
I think American Idol is the greatest training program ever created. They pull kids off the street, find them with talent, and they have to stand there in front of 3 judges, and then they have to sing to move to the next round. And then they move them to a stage in front of the other contestants, no fans, no spectators or anything like that. Then they have to perform in front of the other contestants and the judges. Then if they get through that, then they move on to Hawaii. And now they have a crowd and a band. And now they have to perform in front of other contestants, the judges, and now a crowd. Then when they come back home, they whittle it down. Now they have multiple songs to do, not just one song a night. Now they have multiple songs. They've got a bunch of commitments, marketing commitments. They're running around. They're tired. Think about a goalie developing in the AHL, the East Coast League, the grind. They're going through the grind. They have to perform. And then eventually, like you see some performers, some of the contestants, they can just rise above and just be able to deal with all the crap going on. And when that first note starts, like they hit it, they're off to the races. And, you know, so I don't watch it like live, like each show, like Danielle and I have it recorded and we watch. So like you're talking about emotional control. And so last night, we're only at the part where they're singing in front of the other contestants. It's called Hollywood Week.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely fascinating to me. You've got these, and they're not pros, but you've got these contestants that step on stage, and then it is like turning on a light switch. They immediately snap out of fan mode, nervousness. Here's everything going on. I got my family here. We're in California. If I don't sing well, I'm gone. Half the contestants got cut during Hollywood. Half the contestants gone. And it was so apparent to me who had emotional control, who could just take all the crap going on, set it aside, and be able to turn on that switch and perform.
Yep. Yeah. And that was the same thing with Aiden, you know, that emotional control, just figure out what gets that kill mentality of I'm stopping every single puck, regardless if I'm in the net or not type of mentality, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's that emotional control and kind of figure out what clicked. And for him, he meditates whenever there's like time in between. He does the Devin Levi.
Yeah, okay.
He sits on his pads and just
what's it called? The Jedi? What's he called that?
I have no idea.
It's from Star Wars. It's actually from Star Wars.
That's
He's
funny.
like he's a Jedi or something.
That's awesome.
But just to echo that though, as far as like, you know, that switch to perform or learn how to do it, I look back to the Super Bowl this year. Jalen Hurts as this year's quarterback compared to 2 years ago, completely different quarterback. He somehow figured out how to turn the switch on, not let the small things that he couldn't control affect him. And just to watch him this year compared to his first time there, he figured it out. He figured out how to control the situation, not get overly emotional, and it was one of those. That's a good example.
So let's take an Aiden, who's now in prep school, correct, at Lawrence, and he's coming in for train. Like, how did you find time? Like, how did you end up being able to work on his mental game within the environment of one lesson after another, and kids are coming and going, and so on and so forth? Like, how were you able to take him under your wing like that?
So a little bit easier because I'm coaching Winchester. So when he was
The
out
high school. Yeah,
so when
yeah.
he's at Winchester High, you know, I would go on Wednesdays and it was either game or practice, whatever it was. So if it was games, I could, you know, see, hey, what does he need to work on physically, drill wise, but also too, but like see what mentally is, you know, frustrating him, or hey, is he, you know, one where there's so much noise in the building, he's too busy looking in the crowd, or, you know, it's kind of something, try to find those little nuances and ticks that are, you know, not allowing him to, you know, have that emotional control. And then when I would have him for stop it at training, you know, it was just more of talking him with about it and saying like, hey, I saw this. This is what you did. I think we can control this better. Maybe try doing this situation, or, you know, whatever may work for him. And it was just, you know, showing him like, hey, like sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't see it all fully. I'm the person taking the step back and I can see it all. So it allowed me to, you know, really just kind of fine tune just little things in his game mentally and physically, because I was that person, you know, behind him with the step back to see the whole thing while he was, you know, the Marine going in full force. I was, you know, the Air Force. I had the step back. I was overlooking him in essence, kind of thing.
I got a question, Jeremy. Young kid, like, you know, young high school kid, as you progress in the state tournament, you're playing in front of bigger and bigger crowds. How do you manage that? Because that's something, you know, different for a young kid to experience that. Going from, you know, regular season where you're playing probably a couple hundred people, all of a sudden you're playing against, you know, with thousands of people watching.
Yeah. No, it was wild. I mean, even for me, just sitting in the stands, I was like, oh crap. Like, I don't know if I could have done it at his age, to be honest with you. Like, it's a lot. Like, and I think the meditation, the Jedi pose, whatever it's called, I think really helped him in the middle of games to kind of refresh and bring his, I don't want to say energy level down, but his emotion level to like normalcy. Cause he would be so, you know, go with his emotion up here, that when he, you know, did his Jedi pose, it brought him a little bit lower so that he could kind of refocus and like analyze what is actually going on. Yeah, you want to stay in the present and all that, which was good for him because again, he's so emotional. He actually probably loved having more fans there, honestly, because that's just the type of kid he is. So it honestly probably worked a little bit in his favor to have more fans and more of that like gung-ho hoorah type of thing going on behind him. So I think for him, like I said, I think it was just more of just use your emotion at the right time. Don't let it go too long. Don't let it go too short. You know when you have to use it, and when you don't have to use it, you got to turn it off, because if you don't, you're going to drain the battery. And when it comes third period, you're not going to have the emotional control to make a save, or, you know, look through a screen because you're too busy chopping the guy in the ankles because you're so mad the guy's in front of you and you're now not looking at the puck.
So John, you mentioned, you know, you got to play in front of all these people, so on and so forth. But to me, like when you were saying that, I was thinking that's what the regular season's for. The regular season is for creating your processes, creating your habits. And as the games get more intense and there's more accountability to each game and consequence, nothing should really change, because you have your pattern, you have your processes done at that point, your routines, what you do. Like, you know, if it's the Jedi thing in between, like that's what the whole regular season's for, is to get to the point that, okay, all of a sudden you're playing in the Garden in front of 15,000 people. You're doing the exact same thing that you did when Winchester played Woburn.
Oh, I agree.
In a regular season game. Now, I'll take that one step further. Isn't that what a career is? It is learning each step of the way lessons and creating habits, whether they're physical habits, routines, or thought processes, preparation, cooling down mentally, whatever it is. This is what a career is for, to get you to the point that all of a sudden you can now play college hockey or you can now play pro hockey. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, the saying is, the puck's the same size, the net's the same size. Nothing's really changed on the ice. It's how you react to everything that's going on outside of it. And that's, like you said, that's part of the process of learning to become a better goaltender. Is nothing's changed out on the ice. The rules are still the same. Puck's still the same size. Everything's the same. So yeah, hopefully you've developed throughout a season. So when that big moment comes, your process is in place and you can perform.
Jeremy, impress John and I here. Because I'm going to say this and John's going to know exactly why I said it. There was a movie with Gene Hackman called Hoosiers. Have you seen Hoosiers?
No chance.
All right, so that's your assignment. Next
Yeah.
time you see John and I, you're gonna have to watch. Okay, so and what, John? Do you remember why I'm remembering Hoosiers after what you just said?
If I'm not mistaken, that was the movie where he was measuring the height of the rim. Just saying it's the same size.
Yes, they went to the state. His little tiny high school goes to the state championship, and now they're in a big arena. So he takes out this tape measure, brings the whole team, measures the height of the basket, measures the free throw line. His guys,
Yeah.
zigzag. It's the same thing. Like, and in goaltending, the net's the same size.
Yeah, and it doesn't move.
Yes.
It doesn't move. It's the easiest position of all sport. We just have to go around this little 6x4.
Yeah.
We're all set. That's all we have to do. It's so easy.
Yep.
But that was a big learning, teaching point of that movie, was teaching the kids, like, yeah, it's nothing changes. And you moving forward. So as long as you're dialed into your processes and your routines and you've got your mindset done, the next stage shouldn't be too big for you.
No.
So here's one for all three of us. How many different settings or big games or different arenas or what have you that we've coached in? I'm thinking, I've coached at Matthews. I've coached, in Europe. We've all coached in these big games. Like we both coached outdoor games and such. But you're right. It does come back to it. The ice is still the ice. The game's still the same game. You think back and I found that's one of your jobs as a coach is just to calm the goalies down, calm your players down, and let them know that it's still the same game. There might be a little bit different, atmosphere, or the location might be a little bit different, but ultimately it's still the same game.
Yeah.
I think that expression, do what you do, or you hear it all the time, like on Instagram when they call up a player, they've done Major League Baseball has done a great job this year. They're recording when they're letting a minor leaguer know they're going up to the big leagues. So they set up a camera, they bring them into the office, and they say, "Hey, look, you're going to the big leagues." I think it's exceptional, but nothing should change.
Yeah. No.
Now they're flying in, first class and chartered planes and all this kind of stuff, but nothing's really changed, and I think that's why it's so important to have your routine down pat, right? And right. Continually working on it. I don't know if anybody listened to the In Goal with Michael DiPietro the other day, and he's having a great year along with Brandon in the American Hockey League, and he was just writing down he was talking about the importance of writing down things, so that he goes, sometimes all of a sudden you forget, oh, what did I do in between periods? What did I do before? And then you can go back and you can see what you were doing when things were going well. And if you don't write things down, you forget them. And then you start spinning, trying to remember them.
It's funny. We briefly talked about that last week with Teddy, the importance of handwriting. And I think that goes back to what we said, that the physical act of writing something down gives you one more cue, one more cognitive thing to think back on. The feel of it, the location you were, and just help you remember more. So yes.
Hey, before we wrap this up, we got to get into something here that I want to get I want our listeners to get a good understanding of the recruiting process at Division 3.
Mhm.
The difference between, I always say this, I say all the colleges recruit 10% of the kids. 90% of the kids are recruiting the colleges.
Yeah.
Because they're being proactive. They're trying to get their name out there, and they're trying to look for opportunities. And with goaltending, there's not enough nets, and so on and so forth. Can you talk me through, like right now at the Division 1 level, so much of it is going through the advisors.
Mhm.
Is it the same at the D3 level? Is it going a lot through the advisors? Is it a lot of you guys? Or is it a lot of the kids reaching out, or a mix of the three?
I want to say it's a mix of the three. I would probably say, though, I see more of the kids reaching out, and then we see that they have interest and we go look. I mean, obviously we do our own scouting during the year to say, oh, hey, this guy's, got crazy numbers and whatnot. Like, we should definitely be looking at him, and we'll try to talk. Again, at the D3 level, it really comes down to the player showing interest into the school and the coach. Because, like, if a coach reaches out and you don't answer him, you get scratched off the name list. Or, hey, you didn't respond 3 weeks ago. Like, I can't rely on you. How do I rely on you on the ice?
Yeah.
So it's really I want to say it's just the best of both worlds. You need the coach to, have interest in the player and maybe see them early on, but you also need the player to, say, hey, I'm interested in your school. I want to go there. Here's your reasons why, whether it's hockey, school related, whatnot. Then we know as a coaching staff, hey, this guy's interested. Maybe he takes priority over, maybe our number one, because, maybe hasn't reached back, or maybe he's up in the air on where he needs to go. And again, D3.
So what you're saying is,
Yep.
There's a distinct value to the goalie or player that takes an active part in learning about the school and taking a visit and communicating and sending information to the coach and getting their stuff in on time. There's a definite value to that.
Yeah, it's massive. Like the goalie we're bringing in, Alex Koenig, he's the MVP of the EHL and goaltender of the year. And the reason why he wanted to come to our school over Elmira was because he's a city boy. He lives in Manhattan Beach in Cali. He loves the environment. He's on the water, and no brainer, he can go play hockey. You know what I mean? So we reach out to him and watch his games, but again, he reached back out and said, I want to see the rink. I want to tour. Like, so it's best of both worlds, honestly.
That's amazing. Like we've talked about it over and over, that your setting is so important. If you find the right setting, you're going to perform better. And that kid knew instinctively that, like, this is going to be a better setting for me to play in. It's going to make me happy, and I'm going to perform better in the classroom and on the ice. That's good self-awareness for a kid to know that.
Yeah. Some goalies could, hey, I'm going out to Clarkson, and that Clarkson is not who they are. Being away from a city environment and so on and so forth, versus, I want to go to a Northeastern, right? Like, I want to be in the city. It's completely different lifestyle. It's completely like, what are you? That's self-awareness. That's knowing what you are.
Yeah.
Well, I played Division 3, and I played at a small school up in New Hampshire. Best setting for me. Jeremy, I couldn't have played at UMass Boston. It would been just too much going on, too many distractions.
Yeah.
Playing at a small school just was perfect for me at that time.
So for our audience, how do they reach out? How do they, promote themselves at the D3 level?
More times than not, it's usually just via email. They email, Peter, the head coach, and then whether it's a goalie or a forward, he'll talk to Ty or myself, and then, we do our due diligence, watch video, film, whatever it may be. A little bit of advisors reaching out. But again, I think it comes down to the kid. Like, personally, like, an advisor, yeah, can just reach out, but I think it comes more along the ways of like, if you're an athlete and you want to go play for that team, like you have to reach out. Like it just says a lot more to the coaching staff. It's more personable at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
an agent's just doing his job and trying to make sure you go to the next place, where if you just say you don't have an agent or an advisor, you have to do it yourself. And I don't know, to me personally, it's just more personable if, Alex Koenig reaches out to me instead of his father or his agent, or just, it shows me, he wants it. He's legit about it. He's not, just pushing it to someone else to do his job.
I understand this. That's great advice. Okay, so for my benefit, for everybody listening, explain to me the UMass roster right now. Are you primarily North American League, primarily prep school, primarily NCDC? Is there a tilt to one league or the other? And how do you view the leagues? Do you guys, we love NCDC. I talked to a Division III coach the other day, loves NCDC. And I'm like, so you got NCDC over the null? He goes, no. He goes, but we've had tremendous success with NCDC kids, and that's our fishing hole.
Yeah.
And so I found that really interesting. So do you guys have a fishing hole?
Yeah. So I would say we try to minimize the amount of kids we take out of the EHL. They obviously have to be like top of the top, like our goalie we're taking out. Like it was just a no-brainer for us. I think for us, we really look at more of the NCDC type. The null, it's a little bit harder because I want to say we're more in the middle of the pack for D3 hockey. So majority of the lower null kids or the upper NCDC kids are more either going, Division I, or they go to the Hobarts or the Adrian schools.
Yep.
And then we get the kids that either leave those schools and come to us.
So you're saying you would rather a high-end NCDC than a middle of the pack null kid in like just generalization.
Yeah or no. For players, it's probably a little bit different than a goalie, because again, like we're looking at games played, like who does he play for? If he's on.
So are you saying it's less important what league they play in for the goalies?
I would say yes, it's a little bit less, but again, like it's hard. Like Peter, like we don't look at goalies in the Premier at all. Boom, cross that off our list. Okay. And then the EHL, like it depends on the team you're playing for. Obviously your numbers, but like we know some of those divisions are kind of weak. So it's like, okay, we try to look at more of like the Northeast teams, because those are where more kids that are better and go and get pushed through to Division III are on those teams.
Gotcha. Good insight. John, do you have a last question for Jeremy before we cut him loose?
Yeah. I've always, like, I went through it too. How do you balance your day? The season's like with what we do here and everything, like, how do you balance your day? Like literally, how do you find time to eat a good meal? Like whatever it takes. Like it's a very hectic day. Run us through your day.
So, just a normal day for in season, the bridge in the morning. So from 8:15 to 9:30,
doing what?
I do all cognitive training. So, VR, or, we work on near the far side or short-term memorization, kind of stuff like that, to build, the goalie's processing speed, not only on the ice, but off the ice. I was actually talking to Big Mike the other day when I was showing him around, and I was showing him the synaptic board of the multi-object tracking, where you have the ball and you got to move your finger. So I said, prime example, power play, screens, flash screens, everyone's moving. The puck is the finger and you're trying to follow it with your eyes and dodge it. Or, hey, let's take a real life example outside of hockey. You're driving a car, you're on the highway, and you got multiple cars going in and out of lanes. There's traffic. Now you're able to use your, soft focus widen your vision and be able to, see everything that's going on. And then after that, after the bridge is over, depending upon the day, usually I'll be able to go home for a little bit, get a nice meal, kind of relax. I have 2 dogs, so, I take them out, let them run around. I enjoy watching them, fight a little bit. It's kind of fun. Not fight, but, do dog things. And then Monday, Tuesday, I come back in for my night sessions for Stop It. And then, go to bed and start over the next day. But I think for me to, just mentally and physically kind of feel good is I like to meditate, to be honest. Like I like to, kind of just find a quiet room, dark, and just kind of shut everything off. It allows me to kind of just like refocus. It's kind of what Aiden does on the ice, to be honest with you. Because it's hockey. It's go, go, go during the season. And it's very hard to, find that downtime. But when you can find the downtime, you have to utilize it, because you'll just end up burning out, because I don't think it's possible to do something 24 hours a day. That's just how I work. That's how my brain works. For me, I have to shut it off for whether it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be. I have to like shut off everything and just be able to just work on the present and just like, go outside and just watch, my dogs run around and enjoy that moment and not worry about, videoing, drills or, I have to, watch clips or whatever it may be.
Once again, being able to flip the switch, turn it on and turn it off.
Yep.
The secret of life, John. We've got it all. We've got it all now.
We figured it out. We finally figured it out.
We figured it out. It took us a long time, but we got it. We got it. But Jeremy, can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
For joining us on this podcast. John, as always, it's been a hoot.
Always fun. Always fun.
All right. Same place, same channel next week. And you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Jeremy, thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you. It was great.
I hope you enjoyed the Goalie podcast by Stop It Goaltending U. If you haven't already downloaded the Stop It Goaltending U app, you can get your free 7-day trial at either the App Store or Google Play.